Breaking developments right now in that manhunt in Hastings. There's a news conference happening right now. Let's listen in. I can't hear it.
Ultimately, we found a person deceased back in the area. At this point, the detectives from MSP are investigating this part of the incident, and at this point it appears that the gunshot was self-inflicted.
Does it look like he used a stolen gun?
It appears that a shotgun was used. We have not had a chance to look at the gun to determine if it's stolen or not.
You don't have a positive ID yet?
We do not have a positive ID. We're working on that currently.
Do you believe it's Michael Cooley?
I believe there's a good chance of that, but we do not have any confirmation at this point.
About how far into the woods is it?
Not too far. If you take Yeckley Road over here to the east, he'd be back probably 100 yards into the woods.
Are they close enough to hear, say anything, or just...
Our ES individuals, which is our SWAT team, reported a shot fired, at which point they backed off, and a canine was sent in, and that canine came back out without any injuries, and we believed at that point we probably had a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Was he cornered, or was it the gunshot that led you to him?
There was a perimeter set up. We believe some of our people were close to him when the shot went off, but as far as what prompted him to shoot at that point, it's too early to determine.
The helicopter spotted?
No.
Was he in a home, just in the woods?
He was in the woods on the edge of a field in a tree line is where he was found.
Why did you think he was there? Why were you close to him when the gunshot went off? What made you think he was in that area?
Because of where he was last spotted and the fact that a perimeter was set up by Hastings Police Department and the state police and the other agencies that assisted, we believe we had him in that area. And at that point, the ES team started pushing into the area with their personnel. And like I said, we believe there was a point where they got relatively close to him, and then they heard the gunshot.
Was there ever any kind of engagement with Cooley? Did anybody ever see him at any point during the search, or was it just this last time?
No, to my knowledge, it was, we heard the gunshot, the personnel that were out there, and at that point, the canine was sent, and then they went in with shields and found him lying there.
Can you tell us about the tip that
took out of the house?
We don't know that yet. We're checking on that.
Can you tell us about the tip that brought the search here in the first place? Was it somebody saw the car, somebody saw the suspect, or both?
The suspect was seen at two different times by two different people. At one point, he was seen inside of the residence where this assault took place, and on the second occasion, he was seen by a second person in this area.
In the car, out of the car?
Out of the car.
Out of the car. Any idea yet what that home has to do? Is there any connection between the Cooley and the home where the car was found?
I don't know the answer to that question right now.
Is that the only gun found on him?
At this point, yes. The crime scene techs are going through processing. I was back at the scene, and that was the only one that I could see that was visible.
And about what time was it?
I don't know off the top of my head.
What do you guys do from here?
Well, we interview our personnel that were back there, that heard the gunshot, which is what's taking place right now. Our crime scene techs are out there and processing the scene and taking photographs, as well as trying to establish a positive identification on the subject, at which point, when the positive identification is developed, we'll be doing family notifications, next of kin notifications.
Do you believe that Cooley had the intentions of hurting anybody else out here?
I don't know, and at this point, I can't even say that it's unequivocally Cooley.
Anybody else see him throughout the course of the search? Any other witnesses call in?
Not that I know of.
This outcome, what was your expectation that this would be?
Well, in a situation like this, this does happen. But obviously, we don't want to see any loss of life by anybody, no matter what happened. We'd much rather take them into custody and face their day in court than what happened here.
How are you going to ID him? Was there ID on the body, tattoos? How will that process go?
Well, I don't know what he has exactly on his body, but that is one way. Fingerprints, DNA, next of kin, photographs, all of those come into play when you're making an identification.
Anything else, Jeff? Thank you very much.
Can you talk about the crime that occurred when this all started?
Jerry Sarver, Hastings Police Department. I can answer some of your questions, but obviously, because it's an open investigation, I will not answer all of them. So, your question?
Did the invasion occur last night?
The victim indicated that someone entered her home last night, asked to use the telephone, and then held her captive all night long. And then at some point, a neighbor observed this individual in the house, and he took the car and fled. A telephone call led us out here, and that's how we converged out here, and you know the rest of the story.
A telephone call from someone who saw the car and the guy out there?
Someone who actually spoke with him out here, yes.
What was that conversation?
I don't know what the conversation was, but I do know it was a telephone call that led us out here.
So someone out here spoke to the man and said, "What are you doing?"
Well, I don't know what the conversation was, but it led us out here.
That was enough for them to call the police?
Yes, yes.
Does it appear that Cooley knew the victim at all, or that he had possibly at least identified her in the past?
There's some indication that he was familiar with her. In fact, may have lived in the area sometime recently.
Does she know him at all?
She didn't know him last night. Whether or not she remembers him down the road is hard to say, but she didn't remember him last night.
Does she have any problem with memory?
I don't know. I haven't spoken with her.
Do you know what time last night he went to the home?
I probably was advised, but it escapes me. Sometime last evening.
And did he have a weapon when he went into the home?
There's some indication that he assaulted her with a knife. I don't know if he took it with him or he procured that once he got inside.
He was inside for a period of hours?
He was inside all night long.
Starting late last night?
Well, again, I don't know when he went in there, but he was in there until about 12:30 this afternoon.
And he used some kind of ruse to get in?
Indication that he has to use the telephone.
Any indication she had any chance to realize that she's 82 years old and trying to escape with somebody?
I don't know that. She indicates that she wasn't there while I was up there. She'd already gone to the hospital, but she was petrified, obviously, and in a great amount of fear.
How did you identify the suspect originally?
Through the phone call that was received out here. The suspect apparently made some statements to the person that called the police, and that led us to believe that he may be our suspect. So we came out here. The stolen car is out here, incidentally. Kind of clinches the focus of the investigation.
So the witness recognized the suspect, or the suspect identified himself to the witness?
No, the witness is familiar with the suspect.
She recognized him, had a conversation with him, and then called the police.
That is correct.
It's been reported that she was sexually assaulted.
I'm sorry,
It's been reported
the victim?
that she was sexually assaulted.
I wouldn't go into that. I would just say she was assaulted, allegedly. You know, and sensitivity for the victim, I wouldn't confirm that one way or the other.
Any contact with Cooley's family? Was it helpful at all in determining what his state of mind was, why he might be doing this?
To my knowledge, I mean, I haven't had any contact with the family. We've been kind of busy out here, but our detective and the MSP crime lab was called to the scene. Plenty of physical evidence was left behind. There was some indication the subject was cutting himself or had cut himself on the arms. So he bled around the house, that sort of thing. So there was some considerable amount of, obviously, fingerprints and DNA left behind.
And the cuts on the arms, that would be the wounds that were reported earlier. His description went out.
Yes.
And you had interactions with him in the past?
Personally, no.
Your department?
I think he's known to law enforcement, but I can't speak to how frequently and what those frequent occurrences were.
He's been arrested. He's been put in jail.
It's my understanding, and you may have to confirm this, that he was on the tether program and had recently cut his tether off. So that was, if that is the case, then certainly there's some indication there that he's kind of go on the lam, so to speak, and decided to do what he wants to.
Police were already looking for him as a parole because of
Yeah, I believe that to be the case, yes.
Could you please say that again?
I'm sorry?
Could you please say that again? He was
If our information is correct, he had cut his tether off of his ankle several days ago. And if that's confirmed, and again, this has happened so rapidly, I believe that to be the case. But if that is the case, then he made the decision several days ago to do what he wanted. That was kind of borne out from what he did last night.
When you say that he was going to do what he wanted, are you saying that he was going to commit a crime or target this woman premeditated?
Well, I'm saying when you cut your tether off, you've decided you're not going to go by the rules that they've laid out for you.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. Whether or not he predetermined that he was going to commit further crimes, I don't know what his mind thought was.
Okay. So it's unclear if he was going to target this woman after he cut.
I couldn't speak to that one way or the other.
His criminal past was suggesting he still should have been behind bars.
I don't know what his criminal past was. Like I said, we heard his name a little bit earlier, but I have no idea what his criminal history is. Okay.
When you say the person, this is Cooley, cut his tether off.
Yes.
Are we confirming that that is him who?
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard.
Well, I mean, are we confirming that he was the person that opened through the home, the LU of it and assaulted?
No. We're saying that he's the primary suspect. We're saying that, like Lieutenant Christensen said, we believe he's the deceased back here. It all has to be confirmed. Plenty of DNA at the scene. We obviously have a deceased out here we have to confirm. There are tattoos. There is DNA, certainly, so that all has to be confirmed yet.
He was on probation then?
You have been listening live to a news conference in the Hastings area after a manhunt has been underway since noon today. Here's the very latest developments. Authorities are confirming for us that a body was found in the woods within the perimeter that we've been showing you throughout this breaking news in the evening. It is a man, and it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound. It appears that a shotgun was used. We've been listening to Lieutenant Chuck Christensen with the Michigan State Police telling us about it. They had a perimeter set up in the area. They are falling short of saying that it was the suspect, 34-year-old Michael Carl Cooley. They are telling us that they don't have a positive ID yet on the body. However, I can tell you for hours, authorities have been looking for a Michael Carl Cooley, who allegedly sexually assaulted an 82-year-old woman in Hastings. We did learn just in this news conference that Hastings Police Chief Jerry Sarver has been telling us that the victim was held captive all night long. It appears that the suspect asked to use the telephone, forced his way into the home, and then held the victim captive all night long until a witness saw the car, her car, speeding away, which was uncharacteristic of her. The car speeding away through the neighborhood at about noon today. That's when she was calling for help. A neighbor heard her, and then the search was underway. Another witness found or called authorities and said that they had seen a man in the area of the perimeter that was set up at Quimby, Cook, Yeckley, and Tanner Lake Roads. So they surrounded that area after getting information from a witness that they saw a man carrying a long gun in that area. They swarmed the area. They brought in a helicopter using infrared to try and find out where this man was. As it turns out, they did come upon the man. They sent a canine in to see exactly what the situation was. After hearing a gunshot in the woods, the canine came back. Authorities determined that there was a man that killed himself. Again, authorities are falling short of saying that there's a positive ID on this person, as it might be the Michael Carroll Michael Carl Cooley, 34-year-old suspect that's been on the run, but they say they're awaiting a positive ID on that. We will continue to follow this. The latest developments being that they did find a body and that they have the lockdown is over, the perimeter has been lifted, and we will have more information on this just as soon as we get it. Make sure and stay with 24 Hour News 8 for any developments in this story.